World War II has been the most devastating war in the history of human beings. So many big cities have been destroyed: Paris, London, Tokyo, Berlin, Stalingrad. Today, almost all geopolitical events and international relations can be traced back to this one war. It is the story of a person who was neither a priest of money nor a master of the land. He did not desire to do anything for it. It was just a wrong thought, an unfulfilled desire to gain power, and the fear of losing power was also the same. In today's video, let's understand it in depth. From the beginning to the end, what exactly happened? How did Adolf Hitler rise to power, and how did World War II started? Adolf Hitler wanted to bring revolution to his country as soon as possible and in any way possible. His slogan was to make Germany great. Germany, which was called the Weimar Republic in those days, had a lot of inflation and unrest. So many other parties were also in the field with the slogan of change. One day, Adolf Hitler expressed his power in Munich, Germany, with his Nazi party, outside of Beer Hall. On November 8, 1923, he tried to bring revolution with armed forces and weapons. This attempt failed. Some of his friends were killed, and some were arrested. On November 11th, Hitler was also arrested, who had fled from there. Hitler faced treason charges and was responsible for riots in the country. Hitler used to take advantage of the bad conditions in Germany and spread smoky propaganda. He used to convince people that he had a solution to every problem. The situation in Germany was not good. Let's start our story from 1919. It was the year when World War I ended, and a famous peace treaty was signed, which is called the Treaty of Versailles. There was an important clause in this treaty, Article 231. It was written that all the losses that were caused by World War I, the responsibility for all those losses was of the German nation. This clause is also known as the War Guilt Clause, because they were saying that this was a war between all the nations. Germany made the only mistake. In reality, France and Britain wanted Germany to pay a heavy cost to lose this war, and they wanted Germany to pay for all their losses. The result was that according to the Treaty of Versailles, Germany was asked to pay a fine of $33 billion to the rest of the nations. There is so much money that you won't believe it. In the year 2010, Germany made the last payment of this money. It took almost 100 years, and you will wonder where this money comes from. It comes from the country. The first payment of this money was made by Germany in 1921. Immediately after that, hyperinflation was seen in Germany. The currency of Germany at that time was the German mark. It devalues so fast that you won't believe it. In 1922, in Berlin, the cost of a bread packet was 160 marks. In 1923, the cost of this bread packet was 200 billion marks. The economy was destroyed, and unemployment started increasing very fast. In such situations, Adolf Hitler enters our story, so people started to believe in Hitler desperately. Many German people were also accused of treason because of the harsh views of Hitler in the German system. So there was a lot of treachery in Germany, and they used to listen to Hitler's speeches in every field. In February 1924, this trial was completed, and the court declared Adolf Hitler a traitor. He was sentenced to 5 years. During this sentence, he started writing the same speeches that he used to repeat in every field in detail. But as we have already told you, the situation in Germany was bad, and many people in the German system started to believe in Hitler's words. So with the efforts of political people, Hitler was released only after 9 months. He does not want people to think that he is doing all this out of greed. Rather, people should know that he is fighting for a great vision. He also says that the youth should be aware of the story of my ideological journey. Those who do not agree with me that the German people are a great nation and superior to the rest of the world, they are not my supporters. A young Hitler knew very well how to fool the public through his speeches. Hitler's popularity increased among the people because of this. Rumors are spread among the people that the embarrassment of Germany is being tolerated. The international humiliation of Germany has happened because of the anti-national elements living in the country. People were very worried. It was easy to scare people. In the next 10 years, propaganda will be used in many ways. The media was bought, and incitement speeches were given openly. Because of this, the conditions of unemployment get worse. In 1933, 6 million people were unemployed in Germany. A lot of people are homeless, and children are dying of hunger. As a result, in 1933, Hitler announced himself as the dictator of Germany. This was a very open way that Hitler was violating the Treaty of Versailles, but at this point, many people in Britain thought that what was written in the Treaty of Versailles was very unfair to Germany. We are charging so much money from them, look at the condition of their country because of this. And then, it is also written that the country can't have its military. In June 1935, Britain signed the Anglo-German Naval Agreement. According to this, it is formally recognized that Hitler had the right to make his navy. But seeing the increasing militarization of Germany, France is shocked. France established a 450-kilometer-long fortification on its eastern border. In 1938, when Hitler felt that his military was ready, he put his first glance at the Austrian country next to it. Austria was a must-have country for Hitler. He wanted all the German-speaking countries to become one country. The real purpose here was not only to take over other countries for its pride, but also to use the resources of other countries to move their country forward. The people whom Hitler considered to be racially superior to the Aryan race wanted to give them living space, so that they can live freely. In the 19th century, a large number of German people lived in the control areas of the Austrian Empire. After Germany, most of the Germans lived here. In addition, there were German settlements in many places in Europe. There was a movement going on in the German people spread in these different places. Its mission was to establish a large country of the entire German nation. A great empire should be built, and that too in such a way that wherever the people of the German nation are, that country should be made a big country together and not be migrated. Especially, the Austrian Empire should be included in this. This was also part of the movement. In February 1938, Hitler met Austrian Chancellor Kurt Schuschnigg. An agreement is signed by force. Under this agreement, Hitler gave space to pro-Nazi people in the Austrian government. The Austrian government is infiltrated by appointing its people. For example, Dr. Hans Fischberg. He wanted to make a new finance minister of Austria. He was a Nazi. And all the other Nazis were kept in jail. They released them from jail. Within a month, things go out of control. The Austrian Chancellor thinks that if we have to stop the infiltration, then why not ask the public? Does Austria want to live in an independent country, or to become one country with the Nazis? Make a national vote on this. As soon as the news of the national vote was known to Hitler, Hitler immediately took his army and marched into Austria. German military enters Vienna city. The Austrian Chancellor did not want any bloodshed. He resigns from his seat. Hitler spread fake news through his propaganda ministry. Riots are happening in Vienna, and the communists are responsible for these riots. That is why the Austrian government has called our army. So that we can protect the country, the Austrian parliament was dissolved the next day, and Austria does not remain an independent country. This invasion is successful without any bloodshed. A big reason behind this was that there were a lot of people in Austria who were in favor of Hitler, because they were also victims of propaganda. They thought that Hitler's invasion was a good thing. The country will become a superpower in this way. After capturing Austria, Hitler moved to other neighboring countries. When Europe realized that Hitler was expanding his empire in Europe, it brought the alarm in France and Britain, but British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain. He did not want another war under any circumstances or at any cost. He thought that let's give what Hitler was asking for, and he would stop on the neighboring countries. Then he will remain calm. There will be no war, and peace will prevail in Europe. For this reason, a Munich Agreement was signed in September 1938. Under this region of Sudetenlandkirch should be given to Germany. On the other hand, Hitler promised that there would be no war. Hitler happily takes this piece of Czechoslovakia with him. But it doesn't even take a year to break this Munich Agreement. In March 1939, Hitler invaded the remaining Czechoslovakia with his army. There is a little fight here for the first time, but the German army won it very easily, and the country is split in two. One part of the country is included in a German territory, and the other is made into a Nazi client state. A puppet government is made. The name was the Slovak Republic. British Prime Minister Chamberlain has to face a lot of criticism because of this. Winston Churchill had said very famously at this point, "You were given the choice between war and dishonor. You chose dishonor and you will have war." Hitler's eyes are now on the next country, which is Poland. To conquer Poland, Hitler very cleverly signed a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union in 1939. Looking at it from above, it seems that Hitler hated the Soviet Union and the communists. How did he do this? The only reason behind this was to invade Poland. The Soviet Union also wanted to be a part of Poland. So in this situation, the interests of both countries met each other. 1st September 1939, approximately 1 million German troops started moving towards Poland. They are planning that the north and south will be attacked by both. At this time, the rest of the countries are surprised to see this. The UK and France feel that this is crossing the limit. If in this way, Hitler is captured one by one, then the next number will come to us too. What will happen to the world? We can't tolerate it anymore. The UK gives an ultimatum to Hitler. If we invade Poland, we will declare war against Germany. Hitler ignored this ultimatum. Because of this, the UK officially declared war against Germany. After this, France, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and Canada also declared war on Germany. UK Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain broadcasts on the radio in an announcement, "A state of war would exist between us. I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and consequently, this country is at war with Germany." But at this point, friends, World War II had not started here. This period is called the Phony War. Phony war means a lie war. All these countries had declared war on Germany. However, none of these countries gave military support to Poland, and Poland's army was very old-fashioned. They still used horses in their army. They could not survive in front of Germany's military strategies. Neither Britain nor France was able to save them. Poland fell to Hitler. Approximately 1.5 million people were mobilized by Poland. But it didn't even take a week for the German army to defeat them. On 8 September 1939, German troops took over Poland swiftly. Poland is not only invaded by Hitler, but on the other hand, the Soviet Union also invaded. After the defeat, Poland was partitioned in two. Half of it goes to Nazi Germany, the other half goes to the Soviets. But from the perspective of the Soviets, there was another country that was a part of the Russian Empire before 1917. This country was Finland. Stalin was afraid that Germany would invade Finland. If Nazi Germany occupied Finland, then it would have been very close to Stalin's house. That's why before we waited for Hitler to come and take over Finland, the Soviet Union asked Finland to give its territory to them. Finland refuses. The Soviets then launched military action against Finland in November 1939. The Soviet Union's army was much bigger in comparison to Finland. Their equipment was also very advanced. But this fight lasted over 2 months, and the Soviets couldn't move much further. Finally, this battle ended in March 1940, and a Moscow peace treaty was signed. According to this, Finland gave 11% of its land to the Soviet Union. In the meantime, Hitler's eyes were not actually on Finland, but on Norway and Denmark. In April 1940, Hitler prepared his plans to take control of Norway and Denmark. On 9th April 1940, Hitler used his Blitzkrieg strategy to invade Norway and Denmark, Hitler's revolutionary warfare strategy, which was known as Blitzkrieg. With the help of this, Hitler successfully invaded many countries. It was a military strategy in which speed and stealth were focused. With such speed, the army will invade other countries using tanks, that others will not get a chance to think. Then, our air force will come from above, which was known as the Luftwaffe, and invasion will happen at lightning speed. The word Blitz means lightning in German. Hitler's focus was to fight small wars, to fight a war that would end as soon as possible. It didn't even take a week. To maintain this Blitzkrieg, German soldiers were also given drugs. A drug called Parvitin was very common, which we know today as crystal meth. Confidential military communiques reveal the Allies suspected the Nazis were using something to supercharge their troops, but they had no idea what it was. When this drug is taken, your fatigue goes away. You don't need to sleep at night. Your hunger and thirst decrease. The pain starts to decrease, and a strange confidence comes into you. Giving such drugs to soldiers has proved to be very advantageous, although it will be very harmful to their long-term health. But in the short term, it is very useful to win this battle. On the other hand, the soldiers will waste their time sleeping at night, but German soldiers can work day and night for only 2-3 days. Both are very small countries. How will they be able to compete against the German army? The Norwegian government saves its life and runs towards London, and a government in exile is made in London. Hitler established his puppet pro-Nazi government in Norway. Britain's Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain accepted his failure. He couldn't save so many countries around him from the Nazi invasion. Because of this, on 10th May 1940, he resigned from the position of Prime Minister. The responsibility of the Prime Minister's chair is now given to the infamous Winston Churchill. On the same day, on 10th May, Hitler launched an attack against France, Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. This was an announcement of an all-out war. Everyone could see that Hitler was not going to stop now. At the beginning of the video, I told you how France had made its Maginot Line. They were already scared that Hitler might attack their country, so they started building walls on the border. Now the French troops stand near this wall to save their country. Allied forces are standing on the borders of Belgium and Luxembourg to save these countries. Hitler used his trademark blitzkrieg strategy. More than 1,000 fighter-bomber airplanes. About 3 million people on the ground were with the German army for the offense. This fight is called the Battle of France. German troops are divided into 3 groups: 1st Division, 2nd Division, and 3rd Division. 2nd Division, the job was to attack the Netherlands. Then they went to Belgium and fought with the Allied forces. 3rd Division's job was to attack and break through the French army line on the French border. The 1st Division was a master plan of Hitler's army. 3rd Division attack on the Maginot Line was just a distraction, so the 1st Division secretly planned his master plan. They were entering France through the Ardennes forest. This forest was a big jungle that was considered by the French military experts as a fortress. The German army would never enter through this jungle because it would be very difficult. They did not expect that the German army would enter exactly through this forest. Using more than 40,000 military vehicles, Group A enters through this forest without any fight or loss. On May 15, 1940, they captured Sedan and traveled further north. The soldiers of the British and French armies were fighting in Belgium. They were fighting with 2nd Division. They were shocked to see that such a large force had suddenly come from behind them. These soldiers are surrounded in 3 directions by the Nazi army. There is only one way to escape: towards the sea, near the port of Dunkirk. From there, they planned to escape. What happened in Dunkirk was a historic turning point in the story of World War II. The thing was that about 400,000 Allied troops were stuck on the beaches of Dunkirk. Those who were fighting against Hitler, their group, and their coalition were called Allies, and those who were fighting with Hitler, they are called Axis powers. So it was very important to save these Allied soldiers on time. Because the Nazi army was moving ahead very fast, they had no way to escape. They could only evacuate through the sea. If not done on time, then 400,000 troops will be killed here. It will be a big shock to Britain and France. Maybe they will lose their country forever. Winston Churchill made a plan to evacuate these soldiers. Operation Dynamo was launched on May 26, 1940. The biggest evacuation in the history of military history. The German army had almost reached the beach on the ground of Dunkirk. They were starting to fire on the troops. The German Air Force was attacking the troops from the sky. The first is the counterattack of the British Royal Air Force. The British planes are coming here to save the Allied soldiers. The British Air Force should cover them and protect them. Secondly, there are some private fishing boats in the Sea of England. These are ordinary civilians who go out to help in the evacuation. 4th June, 1940. Almost 350,000 soldiers were successfully evacuated. But the bad news is that most of the military equipment of the Allied forces ended in this evacuation. A few days later, on 22nd June 1940, France surrendered in front of Hitler. So by July 1940, the situation was such that Hitler had captured almost all the countries around him: Austria, Poland, Denmark, Norway, Belgium, Luxembourg, Netherlands, France. At this point, there are only 3 big empires left in Europe: Hitler's Germany, Britain, and the Soviet Union. There is a peace agreement between Germany and the Soviet Union, so Hitler didn't need to be afraid of the Soviet Union. Technically, only Britain remained a threat to Hitler. Hitler thought that now that all this fighting was over, Winston Churchill would like to sign a peace treaty with Hitler. Churchill would not want to put his country at risk, now that the German army has become so powerful. But it would have been the opposite. An iconic speech was given by Winston Churchill. He clarifies that there can never be a peace treaty between Churchill and Hitler. This war that has been waged against Germany will continue. This speech meant that Hitler would now also want to invade the UK. This is what Hitler is trying to do. Hitler planned Operation Sea Lion to attack the British. Where it is, thought of how to attack the British. By land, there is no connection between the UK and mainland Europe, so the army cannot be sent through land. German Air Force Luftwaffe has 2,600 aircraft. The UK has only 700. That is why on 10th July 1940, Hitler attacked the British through air. German Air Force Luftwaffe attacks by dropping bombs. In the beginning, they aimed to destroy aircraft, airfields, and manufacturing factories. The British Royal Air Force was 1/4 in size in comparison to the German Air Force. It tries its best to defend its country. There is a very tough fight here, but eventually, the British had to bear more losses. Gradually, the Germans started attacking at night. Such a night happened on 24th August 1940, when by mistake, some German pilots go and drop bombs on the city of London, where a lot of civilians are killed. This was the Great Fire in the city of London. Pictures look like hell on earth. Winston Churchill thinks, what kind of war is this? They are attacking our cities directly. The UK retaliated by dropping bombs on the city of Berlin. When Hitler saw this happening, in the beginning he was not interested in dropping bombs on the city of London, but when he sees that the bombing of cities has already begun, now I will destroy London too. 15th September 1940, Hitler ordered the German Air Force to do an all-out decisive attack, send more than 1,000 fighter jets at once, and finish the work in one day. Imagine what the people would have seen that day. More than 1,000 fighter jets are coming into the sky to drop bombs on your country. Specifically, this number was 1120 aircraft, of which there were 620 fighters and 500 bombers. The British prepared their Royal Air Force. They have only 630 aircraft. A historic battle takes place in the sky on this day. The first wave of 100 bombers and 400 fighters was intercepted. Fighting raged from the coast. The British Royal Air Force drops aircraft of more than 60 aircraft. Only 29 aircraft were lost from their side. You heard it right. The British successfully stopped the attack of the German Air Force. This day is called Battle of Britain Day. This Battle of Britain Day was one of the first major losses for Hitler. For the first time in World War II, Hitler had to face a defeat. Hitler knew that the chances were less that this mission would be successful, so Operation Sea Lion is postponed, and Hitler takes his eyes off the UK and looks at the Soviet Union. In April 1941, the story on the map looked something like this. In Eastern Europe, the countries of Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria, they had allied with Germany. They had become a part of the Axis powers. After this, if we go to the east, in the countries of Yugoslavia and Greece, Hitler had already taken control. The interesting thing is that Hitler was not so interested in invading Britain. Hitler wanted to sign a peace treaty with Britain. He thinks that why not put his eyes on the Soviet Union to defeat the Soviet Union? And when this happens, then Britain will forcefully sign a peace treaty. But why attack the Soviet Union when they already have a peace treaty with them? The real reason behind this was the ideology of Hitler. He hated the communist people. Apart from this, he thought that if the Soviet Union was captured, then Germany will become the #1 superpower in the world, because so much land will now come under Germany. But to attack the Soviet Union was a big mistake for Hitler. It became a turning point in World War II. Hitler's plan was very simple. The way he invaded France, the same way he invaded the Soviet Union. He will divide his German forces into 3 parts. The first part will go from the Baltic region to Leningrad, the city where Stalin used to live. The second part will attack Moscow, and the third part will attack from the south, going through Ukraine. This operation started on 22nd June 1941. The Soviet Union's army was much bigger than the Germans. They had 20,000 tanks. The Germans had only 6,000 tanks. But there was a big difference. German technology was much better than the Soviet. That's why the upper hand in this fight was still of Hitler. To save his country, the Soviet Union joined Britain and became a part of the Allied powers. Because with the help of Hitler's blitzkrieg strategy, in just 2 days, the Germans had already entered 100 kilometers and occupied so much of the Soviet Union's land. Within a few weeks, they go so far that they are only 300 kilometers away from Moscow. At this point, there were some disagreements between Hitler and his military commanders. Because of this, the next German advance is delayed till October. The cold starts to increase. In the cold weather, the Soviets have an advantage. They are used to fighting in the cold. On the other hand, on the side of Japan, the Soviet Union got its second advantage there. Japan and the Soviets had signed a non-aggression treaty together. This meant that the troops of the Soviet army, which were present on the eastern border and were fighting with Japan, could come back and fight in the west against Germany to save their country. In December 1941, there is another twist in our story. Suddenly, Japan attacked the Pearl Harbor base in the USA. Without any provocation, more than 2,300 American troops were killed. At this point, America did not want to get involved in World War II. But when this bombing of Pearl Harbor happened, then America felt that it was enough. At this point, America officially declares war against Japan and kills its entry into World War II, where a state of war existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire. America joined the alliance with the Allied forces, which there are big nations like the UK, the Soviet Union, and China. Here, you will wonder why the Pearl Harbor attack is being done. America takes a few months to prepare for the war. Till then, in early 1942, Japan had already invaded Thailand and Cambodia, and has captured it. In mid-1942, Hitler decided to focus on the south of the Soviet Union, where their supply chain is coming from Iran. First, it should be destroyed. Here, a fierce war takes place in the city of Stalingrad. The army of the Soviet Union was able to successfully defend itself against the German army. On the other side of the earth, the Allied forces, together with America, attacked Japanese territories in the South Pacific. This battle is called the Battle of Midway. 4 important Japanese aircraft and supply carriers were destroyed in June 1942. In the Battle of Midway, the Japanese carrier fleet, the mightiest in existence, was utterly destroyed. Japan, at the height of its military power, lost not only a major naval engagement, but in a single day, doomed the Japanese Empire to ruin and defeat. By the end of 1942, the British Army successfully threw out the Italian and German forces from Egypt. The Battle of Stalingrad is a very long one. In November 1942, the winter season came again. It is becoming very difficult to fight for the German army. At one point, the German army had captured almost the entire city of Stalingrad, but the Soviets kept fighting till the end. The Battle of Stalingrad was the deadliest battle during World War II. Finally, the Soviet soldiers remained successful. Almost 300,000 German troops present in Stalingrad are surrounded by Soviet soldiers from all sides. These people surrendered in February 1943. This is the biggest turning point of World War II. After a few months, in July 1943, the common people living in Italy pushed out their dictator, Mussolini. Literally. In Italy, the anti-fascist movement is seen among the common people. Civilian people fight against their dictator by getting disturbed by their situation. Mussolini is killed by a common Italian. A new government is formed in Italy, and this new government decides to stop fighting with the Allied forces. Gradually, the confidence in the Allied countries was increasing that they could defeat Hitler. 6th June 1944, another historic day, which is called D-Day. On this day, the Allied forces started a terrible operation of landing on the ground. More than 1.5 million British, Canadian, and American soldiers landed on the beaches of Normandy in France. They will fight against the German army on the ground and free France. After the evacuation of Dunkirk a few years ago, it was the first time the British army was present on the ground to fight against the German army. This is D-Day. This became a tough situation for Hitler. Hitler had asked his army to focus on the Soviet Union. They had to bear losses due to the cold there. They couldn't defeat the Soviet Union completely, and now, this attack is coming from the Western Front as well. So, Hitler decided to take the army from the Eastern Front, and the entire counterattack should be focused on the Allied forces coming from the West. As soon as Hitler withdrew his army from the Soviet Union, a big counterattack was seen. Within just 2 months, the Soviets took back about 600 kilometers of land from Germany. Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and the countries of Romania were now under the occupation of the Soviet army. On the other hand, the Allied forces also landed in France from the south. One after the other, the liberation of the countries begins. Hitler's army is thrown out. Germany was being attacked from 3 directions. Hitler planned his last major offensive, which is known as the Battle of Bulge in the Ardennes Forest region. The aim was for the German army to withdraw the Allied forces before formally invading Germany. The Allied forces did amazing aerial bombings on German cities. In February 1945, a Yalta Conference was held in Crimea. In this, it is announced that the country that declares war on Germany can join the attack on Germany. Venezuela, Uruguay, Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Lebanon, and Paraguay all declared war on Germany. The last 4 months of World War II are the most painful, almost every day. 30,000 people were being killed as the Allied forces move forward. They learn about Hitler's concentration camps, where millions of innocent Jews were brutally killed. The bombing of the Allied forces continued in German cities. Later, it was also criticized by some people that it was unnecessary to bomb German cities, where many civilians were killed, and cities like Dresden were destroyed. It is said that when Hitler could have been destroyed on the ground, then what was the need to do this? By this point in time, it was clear that Hitler was going to lose. Finally, in May 1945, the city of Berlin was surrounded by the Soviet army. Just 2 days before this, on 30th April 1945, Hitler himself celebrated his birthday. On 8th May 1945, Germany formally surrendered. The German territories were divided into East Germany and West Germany. A new Poland country was created from a large part of East Germany, and many countries' borders were drawn again. The map of Europe that you see today looks like this because of World War II. The map before this was something else. When a new government was formed in Germany, it joined hands with France. The long-standing enmity between these two countries, which was going on, finally ended in the beginning. To increase cooperation between these two countries, a European Coal and Steel Committee was formed so that they could trade with things like coal and steel. After a few years, the neighboring countries like Italy and Britain also became a part of it. Trading was taken to the next step, and eventually, in the year 2000, the formation of the European Union took place. Such an organization has destroyed all the borders between European countries today, and thanks to this, till today, after World War II, no such war took place in Europe. In October 1945, the United Nations was also established to ensure that no world war is seen in the world again.